Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. Today we're doing a breakdown on the position turtle, looking at what to do, what not to do, and also how to improve your turtle.
Yeah, just we're going to be looking at it from a top and bottom position as well. So if you're unfamiliar with how to escape or how to attack from it, we're going to be discussing all the points that you need to know today.
We also give you a few areas where you can actually go to research and improve the position, as well as a few of our personal key techniques and fundamentals for the position.
I started like messing around with turtle probably more so from the positions that kind of led off the back of wrestling and getting snap downs and probably basically where people naturally go from that, and probably more so actually as well from like people shooting doubles or singles and them being bad at them, and then you end up in turtle naturally, don't you?
Yeah, especially if someone's got a good sprawl, like you're going to end up eating the mat and face down.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know why, and I don't know whether it's just because of sports I've done in the past, but I've always had a pretty sharp sprawl. So I've always been able to, like, naturally or just through the. It might be one of the first things that I learned doing jiu-jitsu or MMA, but like I've always had decent sprawl. So I've found quite often people in that position, and just have had years of playing around with people being in turtle and messing around with different options from there. It's one of my favourite positions to be honest, because I just think there's loads of options off the back of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I think when I first started playing that position more, it was the kind of way that I was taught it initially, which, as we were speaking before we started recording, it's like a pet peeve of mine. It's sort of taught as like a safe place. So it's a position that I'd end up going to if I felt that my guard was being passed, or if I couldn't escape side control any other way. I'd kind of force to go belly down and pull my knees under. And yeah, initially it was taught to me in it's a safe space. If nobody can open you up, then you're essentially not going to have your back taken or be turned over. And then fast forward about 6-7 years, like literally that far into my training, I was introduced to Cam and ASW and a bit more of a wrestler, catch wrestling style of playing. And that's when the chin strap was brought into my game, and I realised that turtle is not a safe place, and it's not a nice place to be if the top player knows what they're doing. Because you don't know about yourself, like in my early days of training, I was very much taught, okay, if someone's in turtle, just have to off balance them a little bit. You can find your hook, or you can find your back take, climb over the top, slide a hook in, and then kind of try and fall off to the side. And then when I sort of got introduced to more the wrestling and the more aggressive style of playing, it was no, you're going to get your opponent moving, you're going to throw them around by the chin, and you're going to force some sort of openings. You're not going to sit there and wait for it. And then that was like a whole revelation to my game.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between that, like the chin strap and the front headlock's massive, isn't it, for turtle? Once you've got that, and you can start controlling the hips as well, you basically got both ends of the whole lever of the human body, the spine, and you can really start manipulating and making it uncomfortable for them. Like, how many years MMA training did you do or whatever? Because for me, turtle was always like, don't go to turtle because you can get punched in the face. And if you're in turtle, get out of it as soon as possible because you're going to get punched in the face.
No, fair. That was never really taught, like that kind of mind process behind it when I was first sort of training. So I think I did MMA for about 4 years at the start, and that's where a lot of my top game came from. And like I knew how to go heavy and hip to hip in turtle, but the aggressiveness and sort of how to actually create the openings in the space, again, that I never really got that side of the position. So yeah, like for me, it was just a case of turtles there, try to take the back, not as it's a controlling position and you can make your opponent real miserable in that position.
Yeah, you can do the old boiling a potato scenario there, can't you? With Turtle, it's definitely the operative position for that.
Well, I say, if you're going to make some good roasties, you've got to boil the potatoes first, aren't you?
And that's not a euphemism. That's one of Si's analogies, one of his famous analogies. There's probably a book of analogies that we could release at some point as well. But
the tomatoes.
yeah, like I've just always had that embedded in like. I think one of the main things that people do who do Turtle badly is kind of, as you're just saying, get a good position and then just try and like step up and just throw the hooks in.
Yeah.
And kind of like you're on a rodeo bull with no hooks. Because as soon as the person moves, even if you've got a seatbelt, you're probably going on the floor, aren't you? And you've just given up that dominant position that you've got. And I always see it like, and I've even seen people, like we were talking about on the other episode that we were talking about the other day about teaching technique badly.
Yeah.
Somebody teaching that technique to somebody where you just kind of step up and attempt to throw a hook over the top. I was just watching and I was like, honestly, that's the worst, laziest technique. And I don't know where you've got it from. It's probably definitely just watching UFC and not having any thought in it whatsoever. But like you're saying, it's such a controlling position that you can just keep somebody there and keep them miserable and just wait for them to open up a space or force an opening with it. Because if you put in a bit of pressure onto somebody there, they don't want to be there, do they?
No. It's like nobody goes to wrestlers to learn this position. It's very much, we can just sit here, and then if they're on the bottom layer, they'll be taught a very, very, very poor sit through. And if you're a top player, you'll be taught to hands on the back, hip to hip, don't overcommit the arm because they might roll you. It's like, no, there's a lot more that goes into that position. Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, there's credit to the jiu-jitsu style of playing on the back, and like there's pointers to take away from it. It's very much so like the not overcommitting your arms, going hip to hip, some of the movement to get around to the side. But it's the wrong like foundations for that position. Like the foundations are or should be taught from wrestling, and even from the bottom perspective as well. Like if you're on the bottom and you're in turtle, you don't stop moving. Like the person on top has the power when you stop moving. If they've got hold of your waist, you're doing good sit-throughs, you're trying to go for Granby rolls, you're trying to get back to your feet, you're fighting the grips, you're trying to do the old, I think it's the judo roll over the top of the shoulder. You're constantly moving and keeping your opponent guessing. You're not allowing them to get the hooks, get the control, get their weight balanced. And yeah, that's why, like, if I'm rolling against someone who's from primarily a jiu-jitsu background, so they're not really cross-training other gyms or cross-training MMA players, where they understand that if the bottom person's in turtle, they're not going to sit still. So like if I'm rolling with somebody and they come from that kind of background and I'm on bottom turtle, I'll keep moving, I'll keep going for the sit-throughs, I'll keep trying to roll, I'll keep moving around. And you can almost sort of feel that this is a rest position, and just almost position the grip. And then if it's the other way around where I'm topping the turtle, and as soon as I get hold of that chin and start ranking the neck around and grabbing hold of the far heel and trying to get the cross wrist and transition into the Dagestani handcuff and just going for a body lock and leaning my weight over the shoulder, there's always that, again, that same feeling of, no, I'm stuck here now. Like, this isn't feeling good. And it's just lack of education in that field, and possibly even not experiencing it either. Because I know from my experience, when I first experienced that kind of turtle, I was like, oh, not getting involved with this. I'm going to let them pull guard and I'll go back to there.
Well, maybe we're taking it back a step, because talking about being experienced in it and not being exposed to it, people might not have a concept of some of the things that you're talking about. Maybe they're unfamiliar with like Dagestani handcuff, or like how you could even body lock and whatever. So, well, let's look at it from both points of view. I think maybe first we should probably talk about like what options are available from the top, because turtle's quite a unique position, isn't it? In the there's almost 360 degrees of available movement and still be in the position that you would consider turtle. Yeah. Basically, somebody's down in like the child's pose position, basically. Elbows on the floor, head on the floor, knees on the floor, usually is what you'd say is a turtle. And you can be anywhere from the hip on the left all the way around to the head at the front, which would usually be called like a front headlock, or depending on what you've got your position, all the way around to the other hip, or you can be on the back as well. And all of that is a turtle, isn't it, I would say. Yeah. So what are you looking for from a turtle? What options are available from the top? And what should people be kind of like queuing for when they're in that position?
See, like, I'll probably categorize it into fundamental knowledge for the position and then my preferred techniques. So for me, fundamentals are going to be knowing how to use a chin strap with the tricep control, and ensuring that your shoulder positioning with your cupping of the chin is in the right position, you've the head in the right way, and you've got a good control of the arm that's directly in front of your free arm. So if they do start basing up, you can pull it away, you can run around away from the head, and you've just got great control over their shoulders and the top of their spine. The other fundamental positioning that I'd probably say is the body lock, where if you are hip to hip, you're reaching round, and I like to be closer to the waist than closer to the armpits. And I'm going to come through and I'm going to grab my wrist rather than my hands, because the wrist allows me to pinch my elbows in, whereas here I don't feel like I can get as strong a squeeze. So I'm getting the wrist and my shoulder on the side that's nearest to their shoulder. I'm going behind the shoulder blade and I'm learning to lean my weight over. So yeah, if they're not moving, they're going to be carrying every single pound that I'm able to deliver through that shoulder. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to, like, because there's drills that I do or that I've done with Hive as well, where you move around a body and the person at the bottom, all they're doing is just being a dummy. So they'll move a little bit, they'll shuffle a little bit, but their whole job is just to stay balanced, stay strong, and provide a body for someone to move around on. And you'll go around and you'll find the different hooks. So you'll move around, you'll find the chin strap and the tricep. You'll come around, you'll maybe try to manipulate the far leg to lift up to see how the hip gets moved. You'll also switch around and grab the opposite wrist and try and see how you can manipulate the shoulder just by grabbing someone's wrist. How to push someone sideways to make one of the legs go lighter, because there's lovely leg lock entries there that, like yourself and I have we've played with quite nicely. There's also head and arm choke attacks. There's lovely guillotine attacks. So I think getting used to the handles and the movement around there. And then my preferred techniques from the turtle position, especially from top, is using the Turkish bar on the far leg with the chin strap. That's probably got me a 90% back take rate, which for any technique, I think any technique being over 70% should be one that's a staple in someone's game. I do love rolling for the anaconda from that front headlock position, and I've got a similar success rate with the body lock leaning over the shoulder. And because I know how it feels being on the receiving end of it, it's one that I will go for because it's very tiring, but also the person will give up the position. But what about yourself? Have you got any preferred sort of techniques, or have you got any fundamentals that you'd say are essential in that position?
Much like any other jiu-jitsu position, I think the two fundamental principles are the same, and it's pressure and wedges or blockers. So, being able to keep a sufficient amount of weight on your opponent so that you're not just allowing them to stand up and disengage from the turtle. I see a lot of people putting the wrong pressure in they could put a lot of pressure down, but they put it in the wrong places. And there's a lot of space for the person to sit through or just simply disengage. And then blockers or wedges are really important as well. So like you talked about that front headlock, it's a blocker or a wedge. It's stopping them from going in that direction that you're choosing to close them off on. Other blockers or wedges, like the ankle grab, as you said, or reaching through and tying up the shoulders and the arms and locking those off. I think about and it's the easiest position to think about this concept as well, about your opponent being like a table, and to tip the table over, it's going to be a lot easier if you take one of the legs away. So I'm thinking legs are arms, which is usually elbows on the floor, or knees. And you want to try and pull one of those out of the way to get them onto the side so you can start creating more options for finishes. But for me, like, if it's not looking for dominance on position and using that principle to turn people over or just create pressure, uncomfortable pressure, it's the Turkish bar to back take, which almost instantly leads into a rear naked choke as well, which is awesome. Anacondas, 100%, Darcy's, 100%. Like these things are all there, and then they open up a lot of other windows for techniques as well. As soon as somebody starts scrambling, it can be quite a scrambly sort of position, can't it? But if you know where to apply the blocks and the wedges, you can manipulate your body position around that. Like I was saying before, it's unique in that it's a 360-degree position. So you can be at any point on the compass and still be able to apply appropriate control to your opponent so that you're keeping your advantage.
No, definitely. I think as well, one thing that we should definitely touch on is one thing that's, I'd say, more common with the less experienced, but unless you've been told, you don't necessarily know not to do it, and that's pulling someone directly backwards over their knees. Like, it's just, don't do it in the training room at the very, very least. Like, ideally, don't do it at all. Like, knees and ankles are too valuable. If someone doesn't tap to a submission, that's their own prerogative. But if you're going to pull someone over the back of their knees and their ankles and potentially injure them, then don't do it. And yeah, it's just something common that I see, especially when we were talking about the jiu-jitsu way of doing it, where you got the hooks in, sat on the back, and you can't quite roll them over. So they think, great, I'm going to make them sit up, and I'm going to drive their weight and my weight through their knees while we're both going backwards, and their shins can't go anywhere.
Yeah, so it's a massive. So like for people who can't visualize what's going on there, if you're not seeing it in the gym, it's a massive flexion and extension of the ankles and the knees, and you're just going to blow your knee out. I'm just trying to think of like a relatable. It's the reverse of a hyperextension. So if your knee was to lock out backwards, it's just the opposite to that. Your knees are full flexion, and so is your ankle. So you're either going to straight footlock yourself on both legs at the same time and then knee bar yourself. Like if somebody's trying to do that to you as well, just like stop or try and roll to the side as quick as you can. If you're trying to take somebody's back, or you're trying to get onto the back, you've always got to take them to the side. Like 100% with your training partners and 100% in competition as well. I'm not trying to hurt anybody when in a competition. I don't want to cause like serious, long-lasting damage to somebody in a competition, especially from a malicious point of view like that. And I'd like to think that everybody who's competing has got respect enough for everybody else on the mat to do the same and not be malicious with it. That might not always be the case, unfortunately, but definitely in the gym, you've got to look after your training partners. So yeah, safety is 100% priority. Going off that though, like we talked about what we're looking for on the top, and looking at that from a defensive point of view. Obviously, you can go back and re-watch what we've just talked about and think about what we were looking at from the top. But to kind of counteract those things or stay one step ahead of the curve from a defensive point of view, what would you say are the key principles that you want to be looking at? And you touched on them before in terms of constant movement.
Yeah.
But any specifics or specific techniques more so?
Well, yeah, like first, like I said, I just want to sort of re-emphasize the movement aspect of things. Like I'm sure you've experienced it, I've experienced it. If someone is moving constantly, it's very, very difficult to find your base, keep your balance, as well as mount an attack. So in that turtle position, movement is crucial, but also make sure it's smart movement. So you're not moving around and throwing your arm out to the side and allowing what can be a compact, tight unit start to fall apart. If someone's got a chin strap, don't start exposing your neck. But forwards, backwards, side to side, trying to roll over the shoulders. If you're going to perform a sit through, find some wrestling tutorials and sort of learn the movement from those, as opposed to someone who's not come from that background. Again, having learned this technique from a number of different sources, there is a huge difference between a proper wrestler sit through compared to, let's call it, jiu-jitsu sit through. There's a big, big difference there. One of them being the power and sort of explosiveness in the initial bit of the movement, but also the distance covered. You're trying to massively send your leg all the way through to the other side of the mat and get all the way out, as opposed to doing a little sit through and then hoping that your spine don't get crushed. So yeah, that sit through is important. And one technique that I always catch is the roll. So if someone overcommits an arm, I'm going to wrap their elbow up, take hold of their wrist, and I'm going to roll over my shoulder that's caught the arm. It's a very, very fundamental. It's probably one of the first turtle escape techniques that I learned, and to this day I still use it very successfully. I have adapted it, and I'm not just trying to catch the wrist, I'm trying to catch the elbow to commit the shoulder. My roll has changed, my grips have changed, and the way that I move my hips and legs have changed as well to when I first learned it. But it's a very, very good technique. And another thing is grip fighting. We think of grip fighting when you're stood up, or if you're defending a choke, or if you're trying to get your escape from back. But grip fighting is not something that's done in most of the positions. And I think in turtle, grip fighting along with movement and then trying to get back to your feet is going to get you much more success than not doing those techniques and not doing those things. You can throw in the other techniques and escapes with that, but good grip fighting and good movement is going to keep you a lot safer for a lot longer. Is there anything that you've used differently, or?
Oh, definitely. Just to add on to that, wrist control from the bottom is going to take away a lot of your opponent's ability to grab your chin or start tying up arm triangle variation submissions like a Darce or an anaconda, just because it's going to limit their ability to lock this off if you've got control of the wrist and you can pin that to the floor. So that's quite a big one. In terms of movement, like you say, with the sit-throughs, I think some people get caught up going for a single leg. I see a lot of people trying to attack a single leg from the bottom as an escape defense. Now, although that's good and it can work, you've got to be cautious of, as you said, as overreaching, because that overreaching there, although you might grab their leg and you may not be strong enough to pull it all the way in tight to your body. If you're overexposed like this, what's immediately evident to you there, if you're looking at this, is two massive gaps under my arms. And there's nothing stopping me as the top guy just from shooting underneath on that and now starting to tie up Darces or anacondas. It's a really easy way from the top to start getting in on stuff as soon as somebody starts over-committing. So kind of just a bit of a tip from the top as well. If you can start getting somebody to over-commit and drive, if you think that they're after a single leg, that's going to be a great way for you to open up some space and start attacking the neck with some head and arm triangle variation chokes. But yeah, risk control and movement. Just to touch on your point as well about what you were saying in terms of wrestling, go and watch a lot of freestyle wrestling, whether that's like Olympic or just the United World Wrestling Federation. There's just loads of great stuff on YouTube that you can just go and see for free, and just watch the athleticism of wrestling. In my opinion, I would probably say wrestling is probably the most athletic sport that there is. I think you'd probably be hard pressed to make an argument against that. And the level of aggression and athleticism that those guys are putting into their attacks and the defenses is world class. And a defense in wrestling almost then always immediately comes into an attack as well. It's not just defend and escape. It's defend and then try and look for an advantage that you can come up on. So if you can come through on a sit through, or even if you've got a single leg, then being able to sit through on that and come up around the back of your opponent's hips, now you're in turtle. You've turned it from being a bad position into a good position. So defend and re-attack is a massive thing that I took from watching and practicing wrestling that I try and put into my jiu-jitsu all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as well, to go back to what you're saying about the extended arms, another thing that as well for that is if someone manages to stuff your head and also sprawl through that shoulder, your shoulder's very vulnerable, and it's almost like you're battling someone's leg with an arm. So you're not going to win that strength battle, especially with the head being stuffed. So just be very aware of those positions. But just to clarify as well, like me and Bonn, we both have jiu-jitsu clubs, and we're not sort of trying to knock jiu-jitsu. We're both very appreciative of other grappling sports, and we use those other grappling arts to build on our wealth of knowledge. We see the flaws in each grappling style and also the benefits in each grappling style, and we try to get a multitude of sources to further our own progression as well as further our students and our teaching. So yeah, we run jiu-jitsu clubs, and when I'm sort of saying a jiu-jitsu style turtle, it's not done in a negative way. It's more there's much more effective places to learn than just using one source.
Yeah, we love jiu-jitsu, we love wrestling. That's why, this thing that we're doing is called the Grapplers Academy, because we've chatted about this, and we feel that grappling as a whole, whether that's wrestling, sambo, judo, jiu-jitsu, you name it, not Krav Maga, we're not including that one. But all of the legit ones, eye pokes, if you're in turtle and you can eye poke somebody, there's your defense right there. I forgot about that. I was just going to get beat up off a load of Krav Maga guys, aren't I? And then feel really bad about it. But no, it's encompassing everything. Like, don't shoot yourself off to one aspect of it, or you end up at a Steven Seagal seminar getting thrown on the floor by Chi. That's an exaggeration and a bit of a joke, but like Si was saying, we're trying to encompass everything and try and make the sport better. It's just jiu-jitsu is what we've done primarily, and that's where we see our base and the best way to deliver that to the community.
Oh, definitely. My mind went blank then. Yeah, but but yeah, like turtle, like this is just the tip of the iceberg for the way that me and Bonn both play turtle. There's not a right way and a wrong way, unless you're doing the very trying to put butter on fragile bread kind of way of doing turtle, then that's definitely the wrong way. But
I think an interesting thing about from turtle particularly, like I was talking about before from MMA, and it kind of applies over to a lot of fundamental jiu-jitsu, grappling, whatever it be positions. There's a reason why certain positions are considered higher dominance or higher priority, or you'll get scored more points for doing particular things in jiu-jitsu, and primarily it's because you can either deliver more effective striking from there, or you've got more options for submission. So if you're always bearing that in mind while you're practicing, you're not going to want to hang out in a position where you can get hit easily, kicked easily, or there's a lot of options for you to get submitted. And turtle is one of those positions where if you're hanging out there a lot, you're in risk of getting hit, you're in risk of getting subbed, and you're just in risk of getting dominated in that position. So always try and up your position to a level where it's either even or you're dominant.
Yeah, definitely. And an example of not having a safe turtle, like this just comes to mind then when you talk about the striking, is Mauricio Shogun Hua in Pride, when he was absolutely volleying someone in the ribcage when they turtled up on him. Like, self-defense 101. There's no safe position unless you're on top. And when you're on top, you've still got to keep working. But yeah, like, go back, watch this video and make notes and go to the source that we're sort of mentioning. Like, freestyle wrestling for me, catch wrestling, even like folk style wrestling. Like, there's a lot of other style wrestling out there and grappling out there to add to your library and add to your arsenal of tools. So yeah, go back, watch the video again, and go out and study other styles and get a very, very dangerous turtle.
Yeah, and when we get the option to get back on the mats, we'll go and share some of these concepts with you, videos, and just give you more of an insight into the way that we think about it.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Grapplers Academy. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit the like button and also hit that subscribe button.
And if there's anybody out there that you think could benefit from anything that we talked about today, don't forget to share the video and pass that information on.